everybody, Mike Burkholder, East County Today, here with Brian Helmick, Chief of East Contra Costa Fire, not to be confused with Contra Costa County Fire,
Very good point.
and not a county fire department.
Very good point.
You are a separate entity. How are you doing, my friend?
I'm doing very well.
Good. So today we're gonna try and get through a lot of topics. So we're gonna go quickly, so we won't go into a lot of the weeds. So how's it been being fire chief?
How has it been being fire chief? Well, I'll tell you, Mike, it has been, I've been in the position now for about 4 months. I had an idea what I was getting into, but it has been, to be, just fair and clear, it's been a lot more overwhelming than I anticipated. There's a lot of things that we're working on transitioning through and updating, so it's been a good opportunity, but I got a lot of work to do.
What's been the biggest challenge?
Oh, that's a pretty loaded question there.
Sure.
I would say that, I think you kind of hit it on the head. We have a lot of internal processes and systems that need to be refined and updated and corrected. Also communicating with the community, because a lot of people do not know who we really are.
They think you're Contra Costa Fire.
Yeah, they think we're other agencies. They think we're a part of the county. They think we're part of the cities. A lot of people don't understand that we're an independent special district funded about 95% through property taxes. A lot of people don't even understand our service area. A lot of people don't know we cover 249 square miles. We have 115,000 residents. We only have 3 fire stations, of which we have a master plan that calls for 9. And we run about 7,000 calls a year, of which it takes about 9,000 fire engines to mitigate. So people don't know really who we are. They don't know our service area. They don't know how we're funded. And they don't know a lot of the challenges that we have. So we're in the middle of really an identity crisis. So I have a lot of internal processes and systems that have been an issue. I have a lot of external communicating that we need to do a better job of. And we have a tremendous amount of operational challenges in regards to our personnel, running those many calls with not a lot of resources. And so I need to find a better way to not only serve the members within my organization, but also communicate and serve the people that we serve through the community.
And so I think what was hard was one of your first meetings, you had to shut down a station.
That's correct, yeah.
What's that been like since closing the station? Can you kind of give everyone a feel of what's been going on in the district as well as what's going on in the firehouses with the firefighters?
So shutting down a fire station is something a fire chief never wants to do. We don't ever want to shut down a fire station. We never want to lay off personnel. And unfortunately here in East Contra Costa, it has become a norm for us.
It's routine.
It's an unfortunate routine. Since 2012, we've been opening and closing or shuttering stations on a regular basis. One of the first initiatives that I came in is that I really wanted us to live within our means. I wanted us to have stability for our personnel. I did not want to live underneath a facade. I did not want to overextend ourselves, and I wanted us to be sound. Now, I didn't know exactly where that is, to be a sound organization, having a solid foundation. It was readily apparent when I came into the position that we could not sustain 4 stations. And that was for multiple reasons. Number one, we have a retention issue within the organization. And
what do you mean by that? You're a training ground for other organizations?
Well, that is, yes, we are a training ground for other organizations. So the retention, it's a multifaceted problem. When it came down to shuttering the station when I came in, we were on the eve of actually trying to extend or go into a memorandum of understanding with the city of Brentwood to keep the station open. And I am tremendously grateful for not only what Brentwood and the county and the city of Oakley, what they've done over the years leading up to me coming into office. But at that time, even if we had received the money, we didn't have the personnel to staff a station. Furthermore, a lot of our stations are at disrepair, and we have 3 stations that have been built since 2002. All of the other stations that we have ownership of were built in the 50s, the 60s, and they were never intended to be career fire departments to work out of. So we didn't have the stations. We have a retention issue, but sticking on the retention issue, it's this organization since 2012, we've hired 28 employees, but we've lost 38. We've lost 38 employees. Now our organization today is 31 firefighters. So if you look just since 2012, we've lost 38. We've hired 28, and only 5 have been from retirements. So retention and not being able to staff stations when I came in was my biggest concern about having 4 stations. Furthermore, as the agency has been trying, is gone down to bare bones for so long. So since 2012 to date, we've been deferring maintenance, we've been deferring replacing equipment, and so we have our self-contained breathing apparatus are at the end of its life. Our personal protective equipment, many of our personnel this year, their gear was expiring.
Now, was that all to keep stations open in the past?
It was. It was 4 stations at all costs.
Got it.
And so we were deferring maintenance, we were deferring equipment replacements, and another compounding issue we have is that every solution we had since 2012 to date was a temporary solution.
Yes.
So those temporary solutions gave us short-term funding through a grant, through working with the cities and the counties, but they were one-time monies. It wasn't a reoccurring. So when we hired personnel, we could not guarantee personnel job security.
Sure.
So when they would come into the organization, we had to tell them that your job is secure for 2 years. So anybody, I don't
But they
care
didn't
if
even last 2 years. A lot of them midway through
Yes.
got hired because, again, you're that stepping stone organization doing the jobs that they didn't really want to do, but they knew down the road it would help them get another job.
Well, many of the people that get hired here would love to stay here.
Yeah.
However, there's two things, and one of them is a job security issue.
Yeah.
So by not doing the 4th station with some temporary funding, one thing it told our employees is that, listen, if you're here, your job is at least secure.
Sure.
It's not going to go away in 1 year or 2 years. So that handles job security.
Got it.
But there's another compounding issue is that we're the lowest paid firefighters in the county.
By a lot.
By 30 to 40%, less than other agencies within Contra Costa County, and we're not really even competitive with surrounding areas.
No.
So again, I don't care if you're a plumber, a teacher, a doctor, a brain surgeon, is that if you have skill sets and you're trained to do something professionally, you're going to want to work for an organization that can compensate you as competitively as possible.
Absolutely.
And that is no different for us. So we had 2 issues when I came in back in April, and one of them was job security for our members, and then being able to be somewhat competitive and be able to pay them what is competitive within the industry. Today, we are not doing either one. So right now, we still have retention issues. Since we shuttered the station, we do have job security. We've already lost 1 member, and we're potentially losing 2 more in the next 2 months.
So you'll be down 29?
So we will be down to 29.
Wow.
That's correct. And so really when it comes down to, opening a 4th station, money, revenue is only one part of it that gives us the ability to be able to hire and sustain and open stations. But if we don't handle making sure that they're permanent solutions in regards to the money comes in, it's sustainable, it's here for long term to take care of the job security issue. Furthermore, that we pay them competitively so they can take care of their families and live within the area. It's going to be very difficult for us to open up a station.
Sure. Was closing that station one of the hardest things you've had to do so far as chief?
No, it's a difficult. I think shutting down a station is difficult, but in this situation, it was the right thing to do. Mm-hmm. Again, for the retention, the community has very clearly stated that we need to live within our means. Mm-hmm. As I stated to you, 95% of our budget comes in through property taxes. Okay. We have approximately, a $14 to $15 million budget. It only sustains 3 stations. Okay. So the hardest thing, shuttering a station is difficult. Laying off personnel is heart-wrenching. The difficult thing I've had to do is bury our own. Sure. And having guys that lose their life. And my biggest thing and my biggest priority. No, but as a battalion chief, we have members that we have lost to cancer, heart attacks, and other issues. And so taking care of my members and the members of the organization is something that we need to do. So coming in now again, going down to 3 stations, it was a necessity for multiple reasons. We cannot defer maintenance anymore. We cannot defer the personnel's equipment anymore. We need to retain the people that we have because they're the biggest investment that we have. They're highly trained. They know the area. They're very committed. Many of our members were the previous paid-on-calls and volunteers of these communities. I was also. Sure. So I started as a paid-on-call volunteer in Oakley. I moved to the area to get experience. 20 years later, here I'm at. So the thing is this, is that, losing and citizens being impacted by a lack of resources and their lives being impacted by that, and my members having to do and put under the restraints that they're in regards to running 6,000 to 9,000 calls a year with 3 engines and 249 square miles, that's where I lose sleep at night. And so shuttering stations is difficult, but yet it's the right thing to do to build a solid foundation. Letting people go is heart-wrenching, but the thing is, we have been known to be the training ground, and people, we do have street credit in regards to people that we produce, and they leave. People watch for our members to be released because they know we train them well. They know they get a lot of operational experience, and but again, it's the life and the life quality and taking care of the health and safety of my members that is probably the hardest thing for me to deal with.
Right now, since you're in a 3-station model, the response times for July just came out, 8 minutes and 8 seconds. A lot could happen in those 8 minutes. Can you kind of share with the public, the importance of faster response times?
Well, faster response times, NFPA, National Fire Protection Association, recommends we have a 5 to 7 response times for all of our incidents. Mm-hmm. We cannot meet that threshold. In 8 minutes, I mean, if someone stops breathing, they have minutes to survive. Fire doubles its size every minute. So response times getting to where we need to go. The time and distance is our enemy right now. We do need more resources in our system to be able to respond adequately to where we need to go. We have 3 engines to cover the area that I already discussed, and time actually is our enemy.
Sure. And so, under this 3-station models, what are firefighters more tired? Are they?
Absolutely.
Okay.
So I mean, we're called to have 9 stations. My goal is to build a pathway to help us get us there in the near future. Yeah. But removing 1 engine out of the system, it takes 25% of the workload and puts it on our other members, right? And furthermore, it gives them more territory to cover, and it compromises their workload.
And one of the things I've been noticing is like between engine 53 and 52
in Oakley and
Brentwood, one of them will be on a medical call and the other's getting dispatched, but then that engine that's on the medical call is coming off the call and takes the next medical.
That's right.
So you're seeing a lot of back-to-back incidents. That's not how it's supposed to be, correct?
Well, I think back-to-back incidents is the nature of our business because
Sure.
we are operationally busy. But I think what it's not supposed to be is that we have engines running calls and then we have other engines from other areas coming and responding the time and distance all the way to get there, and then they're getting canceled by the unit that is becoming available.
Sure.
I mean, they should try to stay within their respective areas unless it's what's considered a multi-engine response into another area. And that's, in our guys, I give them credit because the thing is they always have attention to detail. They're hypersensitive to what's going on the radio and around their surroundings, and they become available as soon as they can. So our guys the guys and gals that we have always done a fantastic job of covering our area.
So what's happening is a lot of times the engine's out of position.
Well, and I think that's an important point. I mean, the thing is, all the communities that we serve, and a lot of people may not know who they are, Oakley, Brentwood, Knightsen, Bethel Island, Discovery Bay, Byron, Marsh Creek, Morgan Territory. We do have stations in Discovery Bay, Oakley, and Brentwood, but the reality is wherever our engine is, when it becomes available and it's on radio, is where the highest level of protection is. Yeah. And our engines don't spend a lot of time in quarters.
Sure.
So if there's
which is why Discovery Bay moves up into Brentwood.
Well, yes, they do. Yes. And because a high level of our calls from Oakley and Brentwood.
Cal Fire moves into Brentwood.
That's correct. They do. And so with the engines that we move our engines around to accompany the system. But we have a medical in Bethel Island. When that engine goes available, Bethel Island has the highest level of protection.
Sure.
Because Oakley's uncovered. And if we run calls in Oakley and Brentwood, we will move engines up from Marsh Creek. We'll move them up from Discovery Bay, and we continue to play the game. But our engines are constantly moving to try to cover the district the best that we can.
And so, one of the things I give you credit for is the mutual aid, auto aid agreement with Confire. Is that now finalized, and can you explain what it is?
It is, and again, I have to thank Contra Costa County Fire. They've been neighbors, great neighbors, for many years. They have supported us the best they can. They send resources over on a regular basis, and they subsidize us to some degree, and that impacts pulling resources out of their area. Antioch, they cover Antioch all the way to Bay Point, and a good majority of Contra Costa County. You have 2 options. It's either called an automatic aid agreement or a mutual aid agreement. An automatic aid agreement means just that. When an incident occurs, it's a pre-planned agreement that a certain amount of resources will come to support you. And we were very close to going mutual aid, which means that We run the calls with the engines that we have, and only when we've depleted our resources, we call them for help, which puts a tremendous delay into the system. We are right now trying to make the automatic gate agreement work. We have a huge disparity between having 3 engines and they have 30 engines in their organization. And it has to be equitable. It has to be balanced, and we're trying to both agencies to make that. We don't want mutual aid, but the reality is if the system takes away too much from the Antioch residents or the area they need to protect, we can potentially find ourselves there, and we don't want it. It's a resource issue. It's not a Con-Fire issue versus East Contra Costa issue. It's a resource issue. So right now, we have an automatic gate agreement. We're trying for 30 days to see what we can do to make it work. But again, they've been fantastic neighbors. But we need more resources in our system, in our jurisdiction. And right now we have 3, and we need 9. So until we can remedy that, it's going to be a problem. Now, I really want to stress the point that automatic and mutual aid, even though we're in an automatic aid agreement, it doesn't correct our situation at all because we still have time and distance against us. Running from Antioch all the way to Discovery Bay to Bethel Island or Byron, you're 30 minutes away.
Forget it.
Yeah,
that's what go French camp.
And sometimes we do that. We reach out to San Joaquin County, and so. But here's the deal: I've given an operational directive to all of our personnel due to the fact of time and distance. If we can't get on scene of a residential structure fire within 10 minutes, there's a high probability that we have to go what is considered a defensive fire attack, an exterior fire attack. And
now is that for the first engine or the second engine?
That's for all engines. So it is for the first engine, and they get there and they assess the scene. Now understand, if we have a life rescue, we have in a situation where we arrive at the scene and we know that there's an effective rescue, my personnel are going to risk a lot to save a life. We are going to break the threshold of the door. We're going to go in, we're going to effect a rescue to the best of our ability. However, once we've identified that everyone's out of the occupancy, there's not a life safety risk, we are going to further analyze the situation to define, do we need to fight this from the interior, the exterior, to be as effective as we can?
Sure.
It's all about having the right amount of personnel at scene. Because if we break the threshold of an occupancy, we go in, the unexpected happens, we have a partial collapse, our personnel get compromised, it's going to take about another 15 personnel that aren't there to effect a rescue. And those personnel take us all the way out to Bay Point. So the reality is this, is that potentially further, or from another county.
Yeah.
So right now, when we arrive at scene, the personnel are tasked with the responsibility of doing a thorough assessment of the incident. If there's a rescue, they go and get it. If there's not a life safety rescue, they look at the time and distance of resources. They look at the incident they have. Every situation is different. And they start from the outside. A defensive operation is called transitional attacks. They start from the outside and they transition to an offensive, aggressive interior fire attack. But they only do so when they know they have adequate resources nearby.
So, how does one train for that? I mean, I know that you guys are professionals, but I mean, you say every situation's different, and every rescue's different. How do you know?
We don't until we arrive. I mean, that's
well, I mean, with the assessment out on the outside looking
good question.
in,
so I mean, there's
how
a
do you
lot
know?
of there's a lot of indicators. I mean, there's a lot of indicators that we get. Some of it will come through the dispatch. Some will say, hey, we have a garage fire, a house fire, a kitchen fire. There's someone upstairs or non-ambulatory downstairs, they can't move. Or we know there's people home, we saw them inside, we saw them out front and they ran back inside. There's just a lot of different indicators, and it does take the company officer assessing it and making a judgment call if there's somebody inside or outside, and at times it's very difficult to do so. That's why we would rather be always an aggressive interior fire attack, do a primary, a secondary search on occupancy to assure it is all clear before we go into knowing that's just property. So our personnel are going to have to do what we call 360. They'll walk around the structure, they'll take the information that's coming through dispatch, the bystanders are at scene, and they'll have to make a calculated decision on is there a rescue situation or is it a property conservation situation.
And you hope it's the right call.
And we hope it's the right call. And that's why our members are highly trained.
Yep.
And that's why we can't not, I mean, respectfully.
So do you guys sit there on like a Friday in the class and go over scenarios?
We do scenarios, we do training. Our personnel do a lot of, I mean, it seems elementary, but we have a lot of coffee table discussions about different situations. Obviously, we do a lot of post-incident review of going to incidents, what can we done differently, what can we done better. Experience is key.
Sure.
Experience is key.
That's why you don't want to keep losing.
And that's why we don't want to lose our members. I mean, we don't want to lose our members because our members know the streets, they know the areas, they know the target hazards, they know the buildings, they know how to get from point A to point Z as rapidly as possible due to the traffic, whatever it may be. And our personnel have always worked a lot with a little, and they do a really good job with it.
Yeah. So I'm going to kind of give you a loaded question here.
Go for it.
We're at 3 stations. We need 9. You've got a lot of people right now with a lot of different ideas. You've got a group that wants to tax reallocate. You have another group that wants to, do a tax revenue forward, comes to the fire district. You have an assembly member who put out a bill that he knows isn't going to go anywhere, but still proposing it, looking like he's doing something. You've got a group out on Bethel Island that wants to run volunteers. You have Brentwood that wants their 2nd station. You have a group in Oakley that wants the Summer Lake station. How's your head not exploded?
So let me start back, and I know we want to try to answer questions as quick as we can, but this is a very important subject. First of all, I think it's very important to note that as the fire chief, and I believe the board members will feel the same way, is that we really appreciate and value that people are trying to figure out a solution for the organization. We are in a difficult situation, and I appreciate individuals and or groups trying to do what they can to help remedy the situation. The way that I assess this is it's got to be in 3 steps for us to approach this, and I'll get to these other ideas and methods and pathways to get where we need to go. People have been very clear, is that the district needs to live within its means.
Sure.
People have criticized, and I understand from the perspective from the outside looking in, of, the district doesn't appear to be transparent. The district doesn't appear to have a plan. And those actually are one of the 2 highest things outside of safety for my members and taking care of our members and communicating effectively with the public. It is, I want to create transparency, brand new website. We're streaming our meetings. We're throwing information on there. Our finance meetings are public forum. Our outreach meetings are public forum. I try to be as successful as I can, so transparency is huge for me. Secondarily is a plan. We have not had a plan. They're like, we give you money. What are you going to do with it? What are the steps and the pathways?
It's kind of important, right?
I believe it is. I believe it's really important. And that is why starting in January, I'm going to be working with the board and the community. I'm going to label it as a strategic plan. How do we strategically, what are the steps to get us from where we are today to that 9 stations? We have a master plan that's a real good vision plan. It tells us kind of what we want to be, and what thresholds and timeframes we should meet, but it doesn't give you the pathway to get there. So starting in January, I want to identify the steps that we need to take. That's step 1. Number 2 is associating a cost, and today's cost, and trying to analyze or project what it will be in 7 years, and have like a 7-year plan that's reevaluated every 5 years, so we can keep current with it and build strategically what our plan is. And then once we can get that in staging of what's our steps, what do we want to be, that's community buy-in, it's the organization, and we're all working together to find what we want to be and how do we get to 9. And then what does it cost, those 2 steps. Then it's how do we fund it. And that gets to really answering your question. All the different individuals have a lot of different ideas. It's actually becoming one of our problems. And the reason it's becoming one of our problems is because, let's say we have 5 different recommended pathways or solutions to fix the problem. See, our community, 20% of our community all subscribe to one of them and think that answer is right.
Because they still all have to vote on one of them.
They're saying, well, what happens, what we're finding is that people say, I believe in option A is the best pathway.
Yeah.
So that excludes 80% of the other, because they're saying, no, this is what we need to do. We will not support that. And so what I'm realizing rapidly is that all of these options are a problem. Secondarily is a lot of the options that are happening outside of the fire district. They're not coming through finance, they're not going through the board, they're not being driven by the fire district. And as an ambassador of the organization, and as a board, as we have a fire board, is I need to analyze and make a recommendation. I'm the general manager. I'm the CEO of this organization. I need to analyze and look and work with our finance committee and say, this is viable. Work with legal, what is viable? And we need to make the recommendation. We have to drive and execute support and then manage whatever the end result is. So our only ability right now is doing, a parcel tax or going back to the people for money. And I believe that any option that is currently out there, at one point or another, is still going to come back to that for a portion thereof. To make it sustainable in this system, all these other options potentially would impact or going back to the people for asking them to support it. So with that is this. I am grateful and thankful that there are many individuals and groups that are trying to find a solution for our problem. I would ask that it all gets channeled through and worked through the fire department to let the fire department not only endorse it and run it. When we figure out,
and see if it's even legal.
well, I mean, legal and realistic.
Sure.
And so concepts are great, but reality is something different. And getting from concept to reality, it's very challenging to do.
Yeah.
So we may need to have a hybrid. We may need to find a way to say, for example, we've eliminated all these other options because they're not either legal, they're not feasible. So maybe we need to go for a parcel tax. But if these ideas were ever to come to reality, then it would sunset or
Sure.
close. Or and again, this all has to be through board direction. It has to be recommended through our finance committee. And this is something we have to work through, but we have to do it in community.
Yes.
And so the point I'm trying to make is this, is that the district's got to drive whatever initiative it is. I need to drive what that initiative is. It needs to be channeled through the fire districts. We're going to have to be the ones that are going to manage it, work it, and communicate it. Right now, I'm working on doing a lot of internal house cleaning, making it to refine our organization administratively and operationally as sound as we can inside. Starting in January, because I got to get through a budget. I'm going to get a final budget done in September. I'm working on that every single day. And my goal is to be as transparent as I possibly can, know our capabilities, define what we're going to be doing in 17, 18, and years to come financially.
Yeah.
I'm building a capital replacement plan, equipment for facilities and equipment, which we've never had. That will be done in September also. And so once I get my budget done, it's building a strategic plan, the steps that we go, and then we're going to work on how we fund it.
Yeah.
So again, I appreciate it, but we need to work it through the district.
So I've always, the way that I look at it is this $14 million problem, because you guys need $14 million to add 6 stations to get to 9. And so 14 million divided by 44,000 parcels is about $320 per parcel. Problem solved. Public doesn't really want to pay that much, but you don't need all 6 right away. Why not go with a implemented program based on the population growth? So maybe you're paying 150 for 10 years and implement it up, build it up once the foundation.
So again,
Or here's a better one. Tax weed. It'd be a big chunk of change for you guys.
so there are 2 recommendations to investigate and
Two
look
more.
at. And there's 2 more. And so again, you need to attend our meetings.
Yeah, well, I
and,
do.
and everyone needs to attend our meetings, and they need to participate. And when we start having those options, bring them to the table, and they need to be explored, and they need to happen. And again, in concept, those sound possibly feasible, but there's steps that we need to go through. So we do, the dollar amounts. That's something that I'm further defining because I want to be very measurable and very
I was
specific.
going off at 3 million, but that's
Yeah, and I understand, and I think that we'll, and that's part of this process. I'm going to drill that down, and through our finance committee to say exactly what those thresholds are and what it is that we need to do.
because it's really a $75 a station cost per household when I did the math.
And again,
And
without
so if
going
we
back
want-
and looking at it.
So if we wanted to get to 5 hypothetically, $150 gives us our 5 stations.
So
Which
we'll
doesn't solve
run
the
that
problem.
through. Well, it doesn't. Well, five.
5's
would
better
be,
than 3.
5 is better than 3.
I'd like to get to 7,
Correct.
and then 8 and 9 can come when the population.
When
So
it
you're
comes to
looking at
growth,
about
that's all
$200.
part of the
So
strategic
you're looking
planning
at
process.
$199 basically.
Again, I don't want to.
And we're getting in total hypothetical. We're getting
Yeah,
in the weeds.
exactly.
I get it. So, like I said, I don't know how you're doing all this. Your head hasn't exploded.
Well, it's overwhelming.
I mean,
I think I'd be. It saturates me. I mean, outside of my faith and my family, this is it. I mean, and that's where I get my energies from my faith and my family. I mean, that's what keeps me going. I mean, I feel called here.
Yeah.
I feel called to work here and work through these things. I do see what I believe to be a pathway, but that pathway is not achievable if we're not community.
Sure.
And that's why we can't have, areas drop off or people subscribing to one idea and not want to be part of the solution. We're only going to resolve this through community.
And so what I want people to know about you is that you're not really one to care about the credit. If someone's got a good idea, you're going to run with it.
Absolutely.
You don't care. You just, however you get the revenue at some point, let's get it. But
yeah, my success.
But you just want to go through a process.
Well, I want to go through a process. I want to make sure it's inclusive and not exclusive. I want to make sure that people buy into what it is that we do. They believe in what they do, and I want them to appreciate the members of the organization that are trying to serve the community the best we can and what we have. my success is driven, it's not about me, it's about if the organization's successful, I'm successful.
Sure.
So right now, we're not. And so in return, I'm not being successful in my position. I'm not doing a good enough job on where we're at, and we have a long way to go. So when we hit those benchmarks, it's going to be the credit of all of the members of the organization. It's the community getting us where we need to go, and we will share those victories together. But as of right now, we're underperforming, and that's for me to correct.
For 4 months, I think you've done a pretty good job.
I appreciate that.
I don't think you're going to fix it in 4 months when it's been a decade-old problem, dating back to 1979.
It started a long time ago.
You've done a lot in 4 months.
I appreciate that.
So one of the other things I kind of wanted to bring up was the volunteers, because it seems like the mentality out here is we're stuck in 1960, where volunteers can still be utilized. And there was an incident, I think a week ago on Bethel Island, where you had a group of people take off the hydrant, ran a hose, but they didn't have a nozzle. And when one of your battalion chiefs pulled up, they asked him for a nozzle, and he kind of gave him a weird look. But, they could have killed themselves with the hose if it went kind of sideways and turned on. One of the guys got hit in the ear. Can you explain volunteers and why you guys just don't want anybody pulling off, hydrants and running hoses and running into fires?
Well, so let me go back a little bit. Number one is, when there's lack of services, people are just trying to do the best they can what they have, protect their property, and I understand that, and everyone's trying to do the best they can with what they have. In addition, volunteers are a huge part of our history. I mean, this organization stands upon the shoulders of many men within our communities, many of which I know and I respect. The organization is where it is at today is because of those men, and again, many of our volunteers, including myself, work within this organization. So I highly respect the members that came before us within the communities that we serve, and I believe there is a place for paid-on-call volunteers to be able to be an enhancement and to support a system. It's just not feasible for it to be a baseline system within our community today. The community's gotten too big. Time and distance has impacted us, traffic and the traffic plans within our different cities. In addition, the participation levels have deteriorated at great rates over many years. Where we were back in the late 90s and even in 2000 to where we are today, and volunteerism throughout the nation has declined rapidly. But specifically for us as an organization, we need to build a system that's going to be sustainable to be able to protect the people the best that we can. So we have made initiatives back in the early 2000s of trying to bolster up our paid-on-call volunteer program. We did a district-wide search. We needed about 60 applications to find it to be viable. We had only about 20 that we got into the district, of which many of them didn't even want to be really operational. They want to be more of a support capacity and prevention or something.
So what is that, like bring food and water to the...
Yeah, just food or water, administrative services, whatever it may be. So another thing is this, is right now, we're at the end of the block, we're at the end of the county, and we're a bedroom community. People go to work, they come, they travel. We don't have the industry going down near the paper plants, and we don't have the industry going down Wilbur. Ag isn't what it used to be in regards to the farmers and the people living in town, and obviously our community has doubled or tripled in size. Right now, the people that want to volunteer are people that want to become career firefighters. They are people that want to come to an organization, they want to get trained. As they're getting trained, they're looking for a job. In addition, the training standards back from the early 2000s have completely changed. They used to have a volunteer standard, they had a career firefighter standard, and there were two different levels. Due to fatalities across the nation, it became very clear that, look, if you want to be a firefighter, you're going to be trained to be a firefighter. Professional, volunteer, whatever it may be, it's one standard.
It's the same standard.
Same standard. So you need to have 20 hours a month of training to be a career firefighter.
That's once you go through the original...
Once you go through the academy, and once you get in, you're an EMT, you're a firefighter 1, you went to the community college, then you need 20 hours a month just to maintain. So the reality is that if you're going to go through the community college for a semester and get your Firefighter 1 certificate, then you're going to go for another semester and get your Emergency Medical Technician certificate, then you're going to go to an organization and they're going to sign you off on your internship to get your state certification, and then you have to maintain 20 hours a month. That's a huge commitment. So people that subscribe to that
and that want to participate at that level, they're going to make a career out of it. So what we found was our program was becoming very competitive with the community college district. They were trained Firefighter 1 and EMT personnel to get a job, and we were nothing more than a stepping stone. We don't have the funding to be able to, train people to have them leave.
Sure.
So what we're trying to do now is, again, we don't have the base of people wanting to apply to be volunteers, nor would they stay as a volunteer long enough to be able to drive fire engines, which takes about 2 years to train someone to be a firefighter, to drive apparatus, and then it takes about another 3 to 4 years to supervise a company. So it takes 5 to 7 years to get to that capacity. We weren't keeping people over a year or two until they left.
Well, you're still not even keeping your professionals.
Correct.
So
and that program, if we were to be able to make it work, it's going to be in the range. Because again, volunteers aren't free.
No.
I mean, you got to pay for their equipment. You got to pay for their training. Someone's got to train them. You still have workers' comp insurance. You still have liabilities. And the program, 50 to 60, 70 people, it's going to be, give or take, $1 million just to manage that, and to spend $1 million a year to train people to leave is not beneficial for the organization. Now, if we were an organization that had 7, 9 stations and we wanted it as an enhancement, we could probably entertain it. But this is where I'm at. I'm a life learner. I'm an educator. I worked with Contra Costa County Office of Education to make RP Fire Science in the high schools. RP Fire Science is done at Freedom and Heritage. The district has never really supported that program. We're coming alongside of them now and saying, hey, we want to support ROP Fire Science kind of as a host agency. So we're working with them. We have for the past couple months to come alongside of them. Nice. In addition, we're trying to work with the college saying, how can we support you? We want to create a pathway from high school to the college, to internships, to come here. That way the college can train them. The college can give them the equipment. And we can bring in them and we can now help train and have extra hands that do what we need to do, but when they leave, the investment is our time.
Sure.
It's not monetary. And so I'm trying to find out a creative way of working with the colleges to work with people to come on. So volunteers paid on calls, managing a program, paying for a program, investing in a program is something financially we just cannot do right now.
So it may give you your 4th firefighter on an engine.
There'd be a trainee.
Training, sure.
It would be a trainee, someone that needed to have a tremendous amount of oversight. There are times it would be like you need to stay in the engine due to the magnitude of the call.
Yeah.
But we try to bring them in the fold and we try to train with them, and that is something that we're entertaining. But that is probably the only thing in the near future that we can do, and to me that rationally makes sense.
But you don't want people putting their lives on the line for vegetation fires.
Well, when it comes down, people are trying to take care of their properties and do what they can. We do not, listen, we cannot have people pulling stuff off our engines. If people are taking impotent action, we arrive at scene. We need them to step back and let us do what we need to do in those situations. Again, our firefighters in certain situations, for example, we tell them not to overcommit to certain situations and take a calculated risk with the training and experience, is because when you're inexperienced and don't know what you don't know, you can quickly get over your head and you become a liability and not an asset. And now you've compounded our problem.
See, and so what I want people to understand is, this Bethel Island call keeps coming back to my head, is had one of those people got actually injured, that first engine on scene would not have been addressing the actual fire, but instead would have been then providing medical treatment. Correct?
In any situation of which we arrive at scene and there's a life safety issue, that's going to be our priority.
Sure.
And we are going to mitigate that.
Getting hit in the head with a hose is...
And not getting into that specific incident because, again, not knowing all the details, not being there myself, but understand the spirit of people just trying to protect their property and do what they can. I think the big thing to note is, yes, if anyone overextends themselves, the life safety is always going to take priority, and then we have a situation we'll take care of property and whatever else it may be. And we need people when we arrive at scene to let us do what we need to do and support us in that capacity.
So one of the other things that you guys are going through contract negotiations.
We are in negotiations.
With, not having the 4th station, there's extra money. I know the union wants raises. They want more from the district. Is this a scenario where some of that extra money is going to go towards firefighter pay to make you guys more competitive and work on the retention? I know you can't go into details, but...
Right, and so the answer to your question, yes, the district, we have negotiation styles. We're in contract, we're out of contract, and we're working on going through a contract. This is actually one of the biggest areas of which is that I need to communicate and actually with the community. We have a website on our website, ECCFPD.org. We do press releases. I've captured about building a solid foundation, about transparency, communication, and retention, our retention issues. Again, I already spoke previously, is that a pay is a huge issue that we have. One thing that's very important to note is that the budget that we're going to be putting out to get approved, it is going to be sustainable for 10 years. People feel, oh, you're going to go, what if you go bankrupt? Is things I've been hearing is, no, I'm going to assure that we don't go bankrupt. I'm going to live within our means, but we're 3 stations.
Sure.
So we're not being able to serve the people the best that we can, but we're sustainable in the model that we're going to have for 10 years. So within that time, within the frame of being sustainable at a 3-station model, which we are, without additional revenue, we cannot go to 4, is I have to take care of retention. I have to take care of our members. Now, obviously, that goes through meet and confer a process. It goes through the board. It goes through finance, and that is a process that the district will be going through. But the community, I need to communicate with them is that if we do not retain employees, the money we need. If we can't retain employees, we won't have anyone to drive our fire engines. And so right now we're at 3, but if we lost people and can't retain them because drivers, I can't get people to stay long enough to become drivers. If I can't be able to have drivers of stations and engines, I can't staff stations.
Yeah.
So it is difficult to communicate, and I appreciate you asking the question, and I need to do a better job getting information out to the community. But we have to handle our retention issue. We have to be competitive within the industry to take better care of our people. So we are going to live within our means at 3 stations. We are going to be sustainable for 10 years. But within the budget, to be able to do so, we have to compensate our members more, or we will not be able to retain them, and our staffing levels are going to be problems because of lack of retention.
Yeah.
So how do you close stations by give raises? Well, we're closing stations to live within a 3-station model is what our budget sustains, and within that, we have to do our due diligence, to be financially responsible, to be able to have a good, sound 10-year budget with our 20% reserve, and take care of our members the best we can, and that's a priority that I'm going to be addressing as we speak.
See, I would argue too that right now your firefighters for the majority are over 40. Would you agree?
I would agree that the majority are. That's correct.
So right now you've got a group of guys that probably couldn't go to another agency if they wanted to, because they're nearing that retirement age, just in firefighter life. But what you need to do is get those 24, 25, 26 years olds bought into the system, so they become the 40-year firefighters.
That's correct.
40-year-old firefighters, 15 years down the road, they have all the experience, know the area. So you're trying to get to a point where you can train the next generation.
So the clear, yes, and here's I'll describe it like this: is we have 3 people on an engine company. You have a captain, you have a driver, and you have a firefighter. The captain, the driver, obviously the captain is the one that oversees. The driver pumps, takes care of all the equipment. The firefighter, he's the workhorse. He's the mule. He gets in the weeds.
The young guy.
The young guy. Yeah, I mean, it's a young man's game. I mean, this career will beat you up psychologically and physically. And it's important to have good, not anyone can just do, not just any type of person can be a firefighter. It takes a special, unique type of individual to do that.
But you don't want the firefighters to go into a home and grab some merchandise?
No, you need to have people with high
mental
character. And high character, and that's why it's very difficult to get a job as a firefighter. My point I'm trying to make is that we have captains and engineers. They're the senior people in the organization. The goal is that people spend a couple years as a firefighter, they go into an engineer and a captain. Losing 38 people since 2012, the new people, the young people, they keep leaving. So my new folks and my senior folks, the gap has grown. And right now, I'm at a position where when my guys promote up, I'm going to have nobody to go to the driver's spot. So the retention is critical, because if I don't have drivers, which are the top 2 positions of the organization, I have no one to drive an engine. I'm not going to be able to staff a 3rd station. So the thing is, our seniors are senior. Well, we won't have drivers, and then the drivers can't go to captains, which that is where I'm concerned with retention, because we let 38 people go. My seniors are getting more senior. My young are not staying enough, and I can't promote people to the next rank. And so if I can't promote anyone to engineer and people retire out, I can't staff my stations for people to drive.
So let's go back to 2012, where you had those 18, I think it was 18 from the SAFER grant?
Approximately.
Okay, so here we are 4 years later. They'd actually be qualified,
Oh,
number 1 to be driver,
absolutely.
number 2 to be captain.
Potentially.
And you're good to go.
we'd be.
You've lost them
And again, losing that group was one of the hardest things I've done, because I'm telling you, we had.
Awesome.
When I looked at I was part of the hiring process. When we hire people, understand, I'm hiring future leaders of our organization. I'm hiring people that are going to replace me.
Sure.
I mean, so I'm looking for the cream of the crop. I'm looking for the people that are going to come in that are. This is what they're called to do, and they want to be future leaders. I don't want to have people that just want to be career firefighters, although those guys are great because they're experts at what they do. But I want guys who want to be future leaders. We lost. It was closer to 12, but we lost 12 company officers, battalion chiefs in that class. They're all the way up in Redding and San Diego and Santa Clara County. They're going to be running those fire departments soon. So again, it's heart-wrenching. That is one of the hardest things I said. Closing the station's one, laying people off is another, burying them is the worst. But bottom line is this. My seniors are getting more senior. I'm not being able to keep my young ones. Can't keep the young ones. We're not going to be able to keep stations open due to staffing. Money is secondary to the problem.
So we sure covered a lot of stuff today.
We did.
This is gonna be a long episode, but I
Hopefully
just want to thank you.
hopefully informational.
Just want to thank you for your time. It's always
Absolutely.
a pleasure. You've been a great friend, great mentor. I wish you luck in everything that you're trying to accomplish. I hope the board gives you a long-term contract soon. It's needed. You're doing a lot of the dirty work that's, I think, going to make this district sustainable for the next decade, and hopefully further. So, again, Brian Helmick, East Contra Costa Fire, not to be confused with Contra Costa Fire or County Department. It's been a pleasure, and best of luck to you.
Well, I want to say thank you, and real quick, I just also want to say it's a privilege and an honor, not only to serve the members of this organization, but also the community. I love the community. I do ask that people would go to our website, look at our social media pages. I also ask that people come to our meetings. Live stream our meetings. Become educated, understand your fire department. We're here to serve you, and it's an honor to serve not only you, but all the members of the community. So thank you.
See you next week when we have another guest. Have a good weekend. Take care.